The town of Longarone was to become a tourist magnet. Italy, recovering from the Second World War, decided to build here the technical wonder of the world, the second highest dam in the world. Instead of an engineering marvel, it was a different story, the worst civil disaster in Italian history. If you visit Vergent today, you will see a dam from whose crown you can see into a steep valley almost 270 meters deep. But only on one side. On the other side, the dam is only a few dozen meters above the ground, and above it looms a mountain. The steep valley here disappeared in just 40 seconds, causing a devastating wave more than 200 meters high that swept away the entire area. Until 1959, the Sellina Valley with the Vergent stream was an ordinary valley with the villages of Erdo, Castle, Le Spes, S. Martino, Prata, Liron, Pineda and others on its slopes. Not long after the war, the Chaudet Power Company came up with a giant dam project in a tight valley and a height of 264.5 meters. Monte Toc was nicknamed the Marching Mountain by the locals because of its frequent landslides. Major landslides occurred in the valley in 1814 and 1868. Nevertheless, the dam project was approved in 1957. Protests by the locals did nothing to reverse the decision. A journalist who pointed out the irregularities and risks was taken to court. Construction began in 1957. The first warning came from the nearby Pontasse Dam, which was being completed at the time by the same company. On the 22nd of March 1959, at 7 a.m., 3 million cubic meters of rock fell into the dam and a 7-meter tidal wave swept away Arcangelo Tiziani, who was cycling to work along the crown of the dam. His body was never found. Construction of the Vergent continued, even though the Pontasse disaster made it clear that landslides in the area could be very dangerous. After the Pontasse landslide, Chaudet commissioned a geological analysis of the Vergent Valley. The study was carried out by Edoardo Semenza, and it seems that his choice was no accident. He was the son of the chief engineer, Carlo Semenza. He had discovered on the left slope traces of an ancient Paleolithic landslide that might have continued. However, the opposing analysis suggested that the landslide was only 10 to 20 meters thick. The dam was completed in September 1959. On the 28th of October 1959, Chaudet submitted an application for an experimental reservoir up to an altitude of 600 meters above sea level, which was 120 meters below the maximum level. An optimistic management issued a report in July denying any landslide. By the end of July, however, cracks had appeared in the mountain. It was 2 kilometers long and shaped like the letter M. On November 4, 1960, the first 750,000 cubic yards of soil collapsed into the reservoir. The level was then 70 meters below the crown of the dam, and the wave had not yet caused any damage. But Chaudet began to take the risk seriously and started planning a controlled slump of the loose material into the valley. There was even concern that the rock slide might split the resulting lake in two and make it impossible to generate electricity. Therefore, construction began on a tunnel at the site of the expected maximum landslide to connect the two expected lakes. At the time, the landslide was estimated to be 200 million cubic meters in size and was expected to descend into the lake within 1 minute. The wave was not expected to exceed 20 meters in height, so the safe level of the lake was set at 700 meters above sea level. On the 8th of October 1963, the municipality of Erdo, at the instigation of the power company, issued a notice to residents to clear the immediate area around the reservoir and not to approach the shores. The warning warned of dangerous waves. The landslide was expected on the evening of the 9th of October, and curious company employees began to descend on the dam to observe the landslide and the subsequent wave in the reservoir. For most of them, it was the last sight of their lives. The level was then approaching the projected 700 meters above sea level. At around 6 p.m., the management became nervous and gave the order to speed up the discharge. A floodlight lit up the dam as darkness fell, illuminating the moving slope. At 10:39 p.m., the mast was set in motion. It was not 200, but 270 million cubic meters, a mass 100 million greater than the amount of water impounded. After 20 seconds the wave of rocks reached the bottom of the lake, and in another 20 seconds the movement stopped. The displaced water was destroying in 3 directions. The village of Kassel, 200 meters above the dam, was flooded but remained standing. The flood wave swept away 8 villages upstream and part of the town of Erdo. The most destructive wave crashed over the crown of the dam. At this point, it was up to 250 meters high. The town of Longeron was the worst hit. The landslide and the approaching water first caused a violent storm, and then the water rushed in at 100 kilometers, flooding Longeron to a height of 70 meters. The water and debris completely swept away not only Longeron but also the villages of Pirago, Fay, Villanova and Rivelta. Dozens of others were severely damaged. A total of 2,117 people died, including nearly 500 children. 500 bodies were never recovered. Half of those found could not be identified. The cemetery is largely symbolic. Flowers still appear at some of the stones. Although it is said that the catastrophe took place in just 5 minutes, this is not entirely true. The lowest point of the newly formed valley was 100 meters higher than the crown of the dam. The remaining Lake Wayante was still filled with water from the creek, and more flooding was imminent. A pumping station was therefore hastily built to divert the water. By the time it was put into operation in February 1964, the water in the residual lake had risen by 20 meters and 100 million cubic meters of water had accumulated. Temporary pumping ran for several years before drainage tunnels were put into operation, one of them along the route of the tunnel originally planned for the Verjont Dam and now ending in a waterfall below the dam. Since 2002, it has been possible to enter the dam itself. The dam's body has almost survived. The water has torn up the road and chipped away the concrete, especially on the left side. The only thing left of the control building is where it stood. Somewhere below us is the destroyed power station. Visiting the site, it's not just the site of the 100-foot-high hill where the valley used to be and the bare limestone slab where the landslide began even 700 feet above the dam that gives you chills. It is also chilling to know that the main culprit, engineer Alberico Biadine, has served just 1 year in prison. The survivors of the victims did not receive compensation until 34 years later, in 1997. The Longeron is standing again, overlooking, as it once did, the steep valley of the unassuming Verjont stream.